Painting your infantry units can be some of the most time-consuming and annoying parts of painting your Warhammer army. For some of us, like me, have 60 plus infantry units in their army alone because we decided to play a horde army for whatever reason. So painting every single one health point model in your army like you're going for a golden demon trophy really isn't worth it. So you're probably asking, how do I paint infantry models without losing my shit? That's exactly what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to be showing you step by step exactly how I paint my infantry models and still staying proud of the end result at the end of the day and still saving around about 20 hours per model. Before we get started, I just wanted to state that I am not the world's best painter. Everyone has their own painting style, everyone has their own sort of like skill ceiling, I guess you could say, and everyone paints how they want to paint. You at home, you're going to paint how you want to paint. Do not let anyone tell you how you want to paint or how you should paint. Because at the end of the day, this is your army and the orcs are my army. Well, this version is my orc army. So I'm obviously going to paint exactly how I want to paint. Even still today, I'm trying to improve daily on how to get better at painting. So please do not come for me in the comments, because it will really hurt my feelings and I'll have a sad face. I'm just going to be showing you in this video what I do to maybe bring some of you out of a bit of a painting rut if you're in one, or just motivate you to get better at painting, or motivate you to want to try something new, or show you a way in which you could probably save time and feel a bit better about painting infantry so that you're not spending 40 hours per model because you want every single one to look exactly perfect and just like Squidmar miniatures do. Okay, so first things first, you're going to need some tools. A wet palette, paint brushes, 3 different sizes, a mug of water, a painting handle for ease of painting, the model, if that wasn't already obvious, and paints. You choose the colours that you need, obviously. Oh, and a coffee, because what's a painting session without coffee? Okay, so starting things off, you want to ideally have a painting handle for ease of painting. They make such a big difference, trust me. I use a piece of wood that I picked up from Hobbycraft for about £2. You don't need to spend £15 on an actual painting handle if you can't afford one. I'm going to start with the base coats first, starting off with Wild Flesh as the base layer and shadow tone for the orc skin. My orc skin utilizes 3 shades of green to emphasize the effect that the sun would have on the model. Starting with the darkest shade on 100% of the skin, then going in with Warboss green on 50% of the skin, followed by Scarsnet green on around 20 to 25% of the skin to really punch the highlights where the sun would mostly be touching. This provides my main 3 tones of skin when it comes to painting skin on my orcs. This is the highlight, mid-tone, and shadow, and it gives their respective places on the model. At this point in the painting process, tidiness really isn't going to be important, as you're going to be painting over any small overlaps with other colours later. So you can be as messy with this step as you want, but don't go too mad and make sure you're thinning your paints. Okay, so next I'm going to be making a 50-50 mix of Enshin Grey and Incubi Darkness for the base colour of the orc's trousers. This allows me to go in with a highlight of Incubi Darkness when I'm highlighting this area later. Once again, with this base layer, I'm not being too overly careful with the application, but at the same time I'm trying to be as neat as possible because I'm a perfectionist and my OCD hates me. Also notice that I'm using a synthetic size 4 brush for all of the base layer applications to speed up the base layer process. Next, I add my base layer of Rhinox hide to the leather parts of the orc model, this time being a lot more careful to not paint on any areas that aren't leather. It's not that I can't fix any mess ups later, I just rather make this step a one and done process. Now I'm switching over to the Kolinsky Sable size 2 brush. This is because the next parts of the painting process will be a lot easier with a good tip, brush, and just a smaller brush in general, which I'll probably go over later as to why that's the case. I'm going to start with the metal parts of the model, specifically his sword for what I like to class as tabletop-ready painting. What this means is I'm not spending 2 hours trying to give him a shiny sword that will show your reflection in it. Remember, this is how I paint my 30 plus infantry units so that I don't lose my marbles. I don't want to be painting every orc boy like I'd paint Ghazghkull Thraka, for example. They aren't a staple piece, they aren't a spectacle, and they don't need to be overly detailed, they just need to look good for the table, and your definition of good is subjective to you. Next is the base layer and only layer of his clothing using Mournfang Brown. Again, this is another part of my tabletop-ready paint scheme that allows me to really enjoy the painting process whilst keeping the model looking high quality with as little effort as possible. The reason why I'm only adding 1 shade of paint on some parts of the model is because these sections either aren't a focal point of the model or won't be drawing the attention of the people's eyes that are looking at them. So, therefore, don't need as much attention to detail. Unlike the face, which should be the one part of the model you spend the most time in making sure is your best work. Okay, so now we're moving on to the highlighting section of my infantry painting painting process. Starting with the leather, and the highlight tone will be Blood Reaver Flesh. My thought process when adding my highlight color to the leather is where does the sunlight touch and where would be in shadow, which is pretty much the same to all sections of the model. I like to paint as if the sunlight is at its brightest and highest point in the sky, so directly above the model. This allows me to add the highlight to all raised areas and any open sections where there wouldn't be anything casting a shadow. One tip I can give you if you're wanting to level up your painting skills is to work on your brush control and paint thinning. The more control you have over your brush, the better the paint job will look. You can add texture by stippling, cross-hatching lines, and edge highlighting certain areas to really bring out features and depth into the model. Next highlight will be on the skin. Using the same lighting method as before, I'm adding the mid-tone to 50% of the orc skin to show the main part of what would be in the sun and what parts would be in shadow. This is also part of painting skin, where you can make the muscles look like islands rather than actual muscles. If you look at pictures on the internet of muscly figures, you'll notice that all the sections of muscle are actually connected. So you don't want to be painting just the raised parts of the muscle because it won't look true to life and will make your paint job look, well, wrong. So when painting muscles, ensure that the top of the muscle in sunlight is painted up to the crease where it will meet the shadow of the muscle above it, and ensure all skin in the sunlight is connected, as this is still skin. Skin is just one massive organ and isn't separate islands all over the body. Just quickly guys, if you're getting any value from this video, why not consider liking the video, as this helps me out a ton. Thanks. The next step in my skin highlighting process is the third layer of highlight, using Scarlet Green on 20 to 25% of the skin. This time, I'm being even more careful where I place these highlights, as I don't want to paint over too much of the mid-tone. Otherwise, I'll lose too much depth and the finished product will look completely off. I'd say 40% of the entire paint job is me focusing on perfecting the skin, as this will be the main focal point of the model and will raise the overall look from a 4 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10 on the effort scale. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the details of the model. This is the part of the paint job which is a lot of small parts of the model that finally bring it all to life and tie in any unpainted sections to either give the model a pop of color or define any tiny details like metal buckles, eyes, and teeth, for example. I start off with Avalan's Sunset for the yellow bit of cloth that hangs from his waist. There are lots of other orc boys and beast snagger boys in my army that have yellow bits and bobs painted on them, from small details to large parts of body armor. Why, you ask? Well, my orcs are part of the Bad Moons War clan, whose identifying color is yellow. I then go in with Ushabti Bone, picking out any teeth and a small section of the horns on his helmet. Then, using Mephiston Red, I go in with the very tip of my paintbrush and paint his eyes red. All the orcs in my army have red eyes. They're incredibly small parts of the model, so I don't need to worry about adding pupils or any reflective spots like on some other models in the Warhammer franchise. After the first coat of Ushabti Bone had dried, I went and added a second layer over the top of the first coat of bone color. This is because some of the Citadel paints have extremely bad pigments in their paints, so colors like white, all creams, and most yellows require multiple layers for a finished paint job. I then went in and added the mid-tone to the horns on the helmet using Blood Reaver Flesh, followed by some small details that I missed earlier, like metal parts on the helmet using Lead Belcher. Also finishing off the sword with Administratum Grey to edge highlight, emphasizing the sharp edge of the blade. I also forgot to film the part where I added battle scarring to the side of the blade on the sword and pistol. To achieve this, I simply edge highlighted some parts of the pistol in a scruffy manner and painted a load of lines to the sword to show the wear and tear that would have been attained over the sword's many uses. And now for the best part of the video, the finished product. Oh, and 3 other models that I painted after this video was recorded. And there you have it, the full step-by-step process of how I paint my orc army without completely losing my mind along the way, and still painting it to a fairly decent quality that I think, in my opinion, is the best of my ability at this point in time. Now, obviously, as I said earlier in the video, I'm still trying daily to improve as time goes on. And yes, I'm fully aware that there are better painters out there than me, but at the same time, there are lots of people at my level, and there are lots of people that are just beginning, that have no idea how to paint. So if you've gained any value from this video, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below, because I am fully aware that I'm not the world's best painter, but I started this channel to help people like yourself and other people out who want motivation, guidance, any help, and just to be entertaining. So if I've entertained you, once again, why not leave me a like? If you guys want to see more content from me, why not consider subscribing or checking out one of these 2 videos just here. I keep hitting my microphone. I've got to stop doing that.